Hey, all you cool cats and kittens out there. Welcome to another EdTech Lunch and Learn Live. My name is Joe Valver, and today with me I will also have Cara Floodman. We are technology facilitators for the Hamilton Township School District, and bringing you today an episode on leveraging Zoom for remote learning. If you missed that reference in the beginning there, it's a reference to Tiger King, which is a Netflix documentary sweeping the nation. I highly suggest checking it out on spring break. You'll be thoroughly entertained, I promise. So, just like we start out every show, let's jump into some of the housekeeping. All right. For those of you that might be your first time coming to episode of EdTech Lunch and Learn Live, our slideshow that accompanies each one of our episodes is filled with a ton of resources for you to use after the show is finished. You can go check out the links. We have guides, we have links to other episodes, links to videos that we found online to further your reading, as well as websites with blogs and things like that. So that URL is in the top left corner. It's a short URL from bit.ly. The letters in it are S01.E07. It is case sensitive, so make sure all those letters and numbers are capitalized. It's for EdTech Lunch and Learn Live, Season 1, Episode 7. Okay, so that's the short link to this slideshow that, again, has all of our resources that we'll kind of go through throughout this episode. Okay. If the stream gets a little choppy or breaks out, cuts out, we've been talking about it in the chat. I just want to bring it up again. You might need to refresh your screen, close the tab, go back to the live stream on our channel, or if you have a link to our live stream, or if you have us bookmarked, which is awesome, that'll help maybe get that stream back up and running. There's a lot of things that go into how strong of a feed you have. You can work on different things that we've talked about in the past, such as not streaming on other devices, making sure your cache and cookies are cleared before we start the episode. Okay, so those are some things you can do to improve the bandwidth and the stream of this YouTube live video. Okay, for those of you that are from Hamilton, thank you for joining us. If you're looking to receive PD credit, you must have registered on My Learning Plan prior to today's show. 1 o'clock is the deadline every day, just as it's been for the past week. At the end of the show, we've been doing this all week. It's been working really well. We will post a link to the exit ticket, in which you just have to fill out a couple short responses about today's show and what you've gotten out of it in order to receive the full credit for today's professional development. That means you have to sit and watch this entire episode in its entirety, because that link won't be posted until the very end of the show. Okay, just as we wrap every housekeeping session, all of these videos are being recorded so that later on, if you need to rewatch this, if you missed an episode, you can go to our YouTube channel, watch the EdTech Lunch and Learn playlist on our channel. All of our videos are being posted there in chronological order from episode 1 to today, episode 7. You can go back and catch all the things you missed, or rewatch some of the things you need further clarification for. Whew, done for the housekeeping. Also, one more thing. At the end of the show, we have a special announcement for the Hamilton Township educators that I think everybody's going to really enjoy and benefit from, especially during remote learning. So definitely stick around for that special announcement at the end that Cara and I will share with you. So, today's session, now that we got that all the way, what are we going to do about today? Well, today we're going to talk about the Zoom conferencing platform. We've already talked about Hangouts and Meet. We've talked about YouTube and Screencastify, a lot of ways to really use video during remote learning. And today is another example and another tool that you're going to be able to use for video conferencing and creating videos for your students, as well as faculty members and parents and community members. Okay. So what does that mean? We're going to talk a little about Zoom. We're going to show you the ways you can access Zoom as a teacher, staff member, as well as the way your students and families will be accessing Zoom in addition to that. We'll also talk about all the different tools and features available to you when setting up or scheduling these Zoom meetings. And once you're in the Zoom meeting, what tools and features do you have access to? And what tools and features do your students have access to? So we got a lot of things we're going to cover. Zoom is one of the tools that is not in the Google Suite that a lot of teachers have been leveraging. There's been a lot of talk about the benefits, the pros, the cons to using Zoom. So we'll talk about a lot of different things today, as well as some of the good practices ways to keep your meetings safe, secure, as well as leveraging the tools and features to really engage your students effectively. All right. So what is Zoom? Again, it's just a video conferencing tool that you can use to communicate with your students live and remote. Okay. It works on laptops, smartphones, tablets. Okay. The application can be downloaded or accessed via a web browser, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about setting up these sessions for you to meet with your students. There's a chat feature in the platform itself, so students can respond with messages to you, to other students, without disrupting the video. There's capabilities to share your screen. So if you want to demonstrate something, we've been getting a lot of questions from math teachers, especially about showing work for their students and for them. So there are ways that you can share your screen. And if you have a whiteboard app like Jamboard, or even just something as simple as a Google slide or drawing that you want to annotate and write with, there are ways that you can show work using that screen sharing feature. And then again, one of the most important things about using video in all of these scenarios is the capability to record all of your sessions. Let's be honest, in these times and circumstances, your students may not be able to get in on every one of your video calls or conferences that you hold. So recording these for students to go back and watch later on, but more importantly for the students that couldn't attend to be able to watch, whether you post it in Drive, share it to them that way, post it in Classroom, post it on YouTube. You're giving those students an opportunity to catch up on something they missed because of whatever circumstances they might have. All right. So that's, again, Zoom in a nutshell. Before we jump into the platform, I'm going to throw it over to my co-host today, Cara, who's going to talk to you a little bit about using Zoom during remote learning and instruction. So without further ado, here is Cara Floodman.
All right. So, hey everybody, by the way, nice to see you again. Zoom for remote learning. So, there are so many things and great things you can do with Zoom as a remote learning tool, just like we talked about the other day with Google Hangouts. You can have a meeting for morning announcements or your circle time in the morning meeting. It's a great way to get everybody together to give instructions for your assignment or give a mini lesson on what the students need to know and be able to do for your lesson that day. It's a great way to touch base with your reading group. So if you have 3 or 4 or 5 kids that you meet with on a regular basis in the classroom, this is a great way to kind of catch up and do a fun activity with them. I've been hearing a lot of people doing cool stuff on Twitter about how they're using this kind of video conferencing stuff in remote learning. One of the cool things that I shared with Heather and Francesca earlier today was about a lesson I saw. Oh my goodness, what was it called? It's like a quote game. So basically, the teacher can display or give the students an idea like excuses for not completing your homework. And then whatever book the students are reading, they can go into that book and look for a quote that would match that description. So it's really funny, kind of letting them all use their own reading sources that they have or that they're working on and sharing that with the group. It's almost like a little intro to what that book might be like, so that other kids in the class might hear of that quote from the book and be like, oh, that's cool, I want to read that book too. So you can kind of come up with little activities. I've also heard of people doing scavenger hunts, while the Zoom meeting is going on. Go and find, a cool rock or something, show us a plant that you have in your house. I don't know. Cool stuff like that. So it doesn't have to just be used for the teacher to be the center of the lesson or the information, too. You can always kind of bring the students in and get them involved in it as well. And don't forget, you can also record with Zoom. So if you want to record yourself giving that lesson, almost like a screencast, you can do that as well. That makes it great for not having to repeat yourself over and over and over again like you do in the classroom. The students can always rewind the video and hear the directions again. So if you're using Zoom for giving instructions, it's definitely a great way, or a great idea to record your session so people can go back and watch it whenever they want. You can also break out into small groups. So if you start as a full class and you only want to meet with your small reading group, you can invite those students, and Joe will show you how to do all of those cool things.
All right. Thank you for that, Cara. Now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into Zoom and take a look at the platform itself and how you can use it to schedule these meetings. Okay. So I already have Zoom downloaded. If you don't have it, there will be a link on our resources page for you to go to Zoom's website to download it, whether you're on a PC, Mac, iPad, Android. There's apps for all of those devices. Okay. So I'm going to open it up right here. Okay. Now, when the screen pops up, I have the option for my home screen. I can look at a chat. There's a chat option here that allows you to chat with different contacts that you have stored through Zoom. Okay. If you're logging in with Google, which we probably all should be doing with our Hamilton email accounts, you'll have access to the contacts that you have through Hamilton. So that's an added benefit. And you can chat here just like we had talked about earlier in the week, maybe even last week, through Hangouts chat. You can have chat conversations, text instant message conversations with Zoom as well. In addition to your home and chat screen, you have a meeting screen along the top, which will show you a list of any meetings that you have coming up, as well as the meetings you have already recorded in the past. Okay. This meeting here will always appear. It's called the PMI, or My Personal Meeting ID. This kind of phone number looking digit is your unique ID that can be used to create instant meetings for you and however many other people you want. So you can click that start button right here and create a Zoom meeting right off the bat with that invitation, with that PMI number, as well as get the invitation info for that meeting right there. All right. And then lastly, you have a contacts tab up here. Again, this will be based off of contacts pulled from Hamilton, as well as contacts that you might have added from if you've been using Zoom in the past, as well as if you have parents coming in on Zoom now, you'll start getting those contacts all showing up here as well. Okay. In the top right corner, I'm going to just make this full screen real fast. There we go. In the top right corner, you'll see your little icon. If you don't, that's because you didn't sign in. But when you open the Zoom app, it's going to prompt you to sign in. So I'm going to sign out real fast just so you can see what that looks like. And when we get to the sign in page, you'll notice you have the option to sign in with an email and password. There's a single sign on option, and there's a Facebook option. We're going to sign in with Google. Okay. Now, as of today, I do want to mention that our technology department has been working to add Zoom as one of the applications that appear in Clever for all of you HTSD educators out there. So it might be up and running. We're still working out a couple of the bugs. However, this week, if not next week, that Zoom app will appear in your Clever portal. You'll be able to click on it from Clever and it'll automatically sign you in using your Google credentials. So that's going to be a huge benefit to teachers and, more importantly, students when trying to get into the Zoom application. And at the end of the video, we have some resources on that last page again about creating Zoom meetings and posting them in Clever. Okay. So here I clicked on that Zoom. I hit open Zoom. It wants me to sign in with Google. Since I'm already logged into the Chrome browser, it recognized my ID, and now I'm signed in, okay, just as I was before. Okay. Up here underneath my icon, again, I have the option to make myself available away, very similar to Google Hangouts. Okay, I can adjust my profile, but the main thing I want to show you in here is this settings button. Okay, this settings button allows you to go through and customize a lot of settings for default options for your video, your audio, okay, options for when you share a screen. There's a ton of different options in here that I'm not going to spend too much time on it now, because at the end I've got some guides and cheat sheets for teachers on the settings they want to use when creating these sessions. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you one more thing before I exit out of settings. And that's this option right down here, view more settings. And the reason I want to show you this is because that guide that I mentioned at the end will walk you through the different settings to set up on this page. So I'm going to give this a click. And what that's going to do is, in the background, you'll see Chrome just opened up a new page. I'm going to close that. And it's asking me to sign in. So I'm going to sign in with Google. And on this setting page, you can go through a ton of different settings for your meetings. Things like require passwords, okay, which is important for the security of your meetings. We'll talk about a bunch of other ways to make sure your meetings are secure. Okay. Enabling chat. Do you want to enable private chat? That means your participants or your students will be able to have side chats without your acknowledgement. Okay, so there's a ton of settings in here that you can turn on or off, that again, the guide that I'll have on that resources slide will walk you through all the settings that you should know about and why you might want to have them turned on or off. All right, so I'm going to minimize this page and pop back into our Zoom application. And I'm going to go back to our home page. Okay. Now here I can jump into a new meeting right away. All right. When I do that, it lets me know if I want to use my computer audio, and I do. I have the option to test my speakers out if I wanted to. Okay. And I can see all the other options along the bottom here available to me as well. All right. So that's a quick meeting. You can invite people from here. It's a quick way to start a one-on-one conversation with somebody spontaneously. For a lot of you, though, you're going to probably want to schedule these meetings out ahead of time so that your students and your parents know when they're supposed to join this meeting. Okay, so let's take a look at that. I'm going to close out of this page, leave meeting. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and just show you the join button real fast. When you click on join, this is where participants can enter the ID for the meeting that they're looking to join. And once they join, they'll have to put that password in as well. The share option is same thing, but instead of joining a group video Zoom meeting with your camera, you'll join with your screen, and you'll enter that ID right there as well. But the main thing I want to show you is scheduling. You'll notice I have nothing scheduled for today. When I click on the schedule button, you'll have the option to give it a name or topic. I'm just going to call this, let's see, Zoom PD with Cara. You can set the date and time for this Zoom meeting. You're not held to that. You can get into it earlier if you want. You can also set a duration for the event. Again, it can go longer if you need be. Now, with some of these settings, even though you're setting a date and time, you don't have to worry about students getting in based off of some of the settings that you can adjust to prevent students from getting into these meetings without you being present. Okay. Always use generate automatically for meeting ID. This way, you're not reusing the same personal meeting ID each time. Okay, just another added layer of security for your meetings for you and your students. Underneath that is a password. That password is going to password protect your meetings. You can change it if you'd like to make it something a little easier. I don't think it gets much easier than that, or leave it as whatever's generated. Video, obviously we're going to turn that on for us, turn it on for your participants. Later on, you can turn video off temporarily, turn it back on. It is entirely up to you when you're in the meeting. Always use the telephone or computer audio that's pre-selected. One of the nice things about Zoom is that it does work and sync with Google. So you have the option to create a Google Calendar event for this Zoom meeting and have that automatically populate on your Google Calendar. Down here under advanced options, a few more things. The waiting room. The nice thing about having a waiting room is it's an added padding between the start of your meeting and your students coming in. With the waiting room turned on, students will wait patiently on just a white kind of screen for you to get in the chat or get into the meeting and then actually admit them into the meeting. And you'll see that a little bit in a little bit when we get started with our meeting. So I like to always have that labeled. It allows you to just be kind of ready to go and let them in as opposed to them all trickling in one at a time. Again, enable join host before host, unchecked by default because we don't want people to get in before us. Okay, I mentioned that earlier. Even if the event link is there, they're going to be waiting for you to join as well as waiting in that waiting room until you admit them into the meeting. Mute participants upon entry, that is entirely up to you. It's a good idea if this is the first time you're doing this with your students to give them a chance to go wild and chat with one another before you get started. Let them have a chance to talk to their classmates that they might not have had a chance to speak with in a really long time. So that might be a good idea to leave that be. You can always mute all of your students, mute them one at a time once you're in the room. This is just a way to mute it upon entry. Again, as you get settled in, you may do that. This way you can kind of hit the ground running once that meeting has started. I'm going to leave it off now so that I don't have to worry about unmuting Cara once she gets in. A few other things to note: authentication. That would require students to sign in. They can sign in through Clever now, as well as signing in with Gmail. But as of right now, they can click on that link and just get in without having to sign in. They can put like an alias, like you see my name came up earlier. It's entirely up to you whether you want that on or off. Lastly, the option to automatically record your meetings. If you turn that on, it's one less thing you have to remember. Why do we want to record our meetings? Because not every student is going to be able to attend every single one of your meetings. So it's important that we're recording all of our lessons, recording all of these sessions. So not only can the students who didn't attend watch them later on, but even the students that were able to participate can go back and rewatch it if you post it on Classroom or post it in YouTube. Okay, so now that I've submitted and saved, what happens is it's opening up Google Calendar and asking me if I want to use Google Calendars, and I'm going to hit allow. And here's all that information that I just plugged into my Zoom meeting waiting for me in a Google Calendar event. The join information, a link to join, there's the meeting ID and password. You can delete some of this information if you think it's going to be too overwhelming and confusing. You can get rid of all this phone information down here at the bottom and leave it be just the link and just the meeting ID and password. It's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and now add Cara. And this is one of the ways that we can invite students to these Zoom meetings, is adding them and inviting them to these calendar events. Now this calendar event with all this information here under event details will show up on that student, on that faculty member's calendar, just as it would for me. Okay. Now with calendars, you have the option to send an email, and that's another way you can get this invitation information to your students or staff members. I'm going to bypass sending a notification email right now because I want to show you how you can just easily grab this meeting info and put it in an email. But through calendars, we have the option to notify or send an email reminder invitation through Google. Okay, so it's kind of a one-stop shop. I'm going to not send that. And you can see right here, there's my calendar event in green here. I can click on that and look at the information that I've shared. If I go back to Zoom now, I can see that now I have a schedule upcoming. I can click on these three dots and actually copy that invitation information to share it wherever I want to share it. Okay. So I'm going to pop open an email and I'm just going to paste that information directly into this email. Nothing fancy about it. Again, you can use all of it, delete some of that information if you want. I'm going to find Cara. I'm going to add a little subject here. And this is, again, a secure way that you can invite students, faculty members, parents to these meetings. Okay. And now that email has been sent. So I want to show you one more thing. There's three ways that I wanted to share with you. One is the calendar invite. Two is the mail. The other one is using some sort of CMS to share this information, whether it's Google Classroom, whether it's Class Dojo, whatever your preferred method is, some sort of classroom management system where it's a closed room where you can post this invitation information. So here I am in Classroom. I just created this one real quick. Cara's a student. And I'm just going to make a simple post. And again, paste that information right in the post. There's nothing fancy about it. And I hit post. Now that information is in that classroom for those students to access and join when it's time for that meeting. Okay. There is an option, as I mentioned earlier, with Clever, that these links and information will be able to be shared and accessed through Clever. There's a guide at the end of our presentation that you can use with your students so that they can get to these Zoom meetings through Clever. Now, just because this information is being shared securely doesn't mean it can't be copied and posted publicly. So this information is just plain text. It can be copied. It can be posted on Twitter, shared through Facebook 10, 20 times, okay? We're doing the best we can to share this information securely. There's a couple things I'm going to show you later on that just in case that information still managed to get out, the link to the meeting, the password, all that information, if it still got out, I'm going to show you some things you can do in the meeting as an added layer of security that will prevent strangers from getting into meetings with your students, faculty, whoever the case may be, and in a sense, Zoom bombing your meetings, okay? So now I'm ready to start my meeting. I'm going to click the start button. And I have this option to choose what audio I want. I'm going to join with my computer audio, the microphone for my computer. I'm going to make this full screen. Now I'm in the Zoom meeting waiting for my students, participants, whoever they might be, to join. Okay. Before we go any further, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it back over to Cara, and she's going to show you how your students, guests will join this Zoom meeting through the three methods that I just showed you how to send: the mail, the calendar, and the classroom post. Okay, Cara, take it away.
So I'll quickly show you 3 ways that students can get into a Zoom meeting. So you have your email where you can send, if your students are 6th grade and above, they can access from the email. So for example, Joe sent me an email right here. It has all of the information. It has the link. If I click on the link, then I don't need the meeting ID and the password, but it's there just for security reasons. So I can click on the link and go and join Joe as a student. If I don't want to access it this way, if your students also don't have access to email, you can create a calendar invite. So I have over here the invitation from Joe in my calendar, and I can go and access the link that way. Again, looks pretty much the same way as it did through email. All I have to do is click on this link and I'm good to go. And the final way is through Google Classroom. So we have created a quick little Google Classroom over here. In the stream, Joe posted the same exact information again, and I can go right here and click on the link, and I will be waiting in the room that Joe set up. Oh, I need the password. Let me grab the password. Luckily, Joe made it easy for me. There we go. Join with video. And I am waiting for Joe to let me in.
Now, while I'm waiting for Cara to get here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this Manage Participants button. And what happens is, to the, I guess, right of my display, I get a little window that pops up that shows me that I'm here, and anybody else in my group, my Zoom meeting, they'll all appear here as well. And now that I take a look here, just as I had said that, voila, Cara has popped up into the meeting, and it's letting me know that she is in my waiting room. If I wanted, I can send a message to everyone waiting in that room. So if there's a bunch of students waiting there to join, they'll all get this message. Okay. So once you're settled in and you're ready to start your session, we can say admit. And there's Cara right here. How are you today, Cara?
All right, I'm very good, thanks.
Thank you for joining us for today's session, and thank you for everything you've shared with us so far. So for the sake of keeping this as least confusing as possible, what I'm going to do right now is show you two things. I'm going to mute Cara real fast, and then Cara's going to go ahead and disable her video so that she can kind of monitor the chat while I go over some of these tools available to you in Zoom. So if I'm looking at the participant screen, the same screen that I let Cara in, I can hover over her name. I can mute her individually. I can click the More button, allow her to record, rename, or put her back in the waiting room, or even just remove them. And this is what you might do if somebody were to get into your Zoom meeting that wasn't supposed to be there. You could remove them. Okay. Underneath that are some of these nonverbal cues, which are in the settings guides that I show you. This will allow students, when they're muted, to still participate via chat, as well as it puts up little indicators. Cara, if you could throw up a raised hand for me, or a yes, so that the folks at home can see what that looks like. And again, and there it is. So you can see that Cara has her hand raised. There's a little notification in her window, as well as a notification that appears next to her name. And that'll happen for all the students as they use these nonverbal cues. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and mute her. I can do it here, or I can mute all, okay? Are you sure you want to mute them? In addition to that, I can allow participants to unmute themselves. I'm going to turn that off because I want to be able to unmute them as the teacher. Okay. Now, in addition to this participants, you also notice this chat appeared here. Okay. That can be turned on and off at the bottom of your screen as well. Okay. So the participant screen and the chat screen, either one or both, can be pulled up at that same time. Okay. And this is where your students can ask questions. This is where they can use the nonverbal cues to grab your attention. Okay. So I'm going to turn those both off real fast so that I can get back to a larger screen here. As of right now, we are in speaker view. Okay. If I click, I can switch that, or I'm in speaker view now. I switched it back to gallery view. Okay. Those are your two options. And that's kind of where, depending on how many people you get, you've seen the little Brady Bunch stylized screens. The speaker view, whoever's speaking, becomes the focal point. Again, you'll also get the little green border around whoever is speaking, no matter what view you're in. Okay. Down here is that record button. If you did not choose to start recording at the beginning of your session, this is where you would click to start that recording. Okay. If there was somebody that didn't get the invitation, you can always invite them right from the chat. Again, there's Chris Corney McGee. It links to our email directory, so all of your contacts will be available to you this way as well. Okay. Over here to the left-hand side, a simple mute button to mute yourself, or as Cara did, turn off your camera. Okay. And you can do that as well at any point in time. In addition to changing your camera from on and off, turning your mic on and off, you also have the option to share your screen at any point in time. So if you wanted to show students what you're working on, you can select the screen, and let's go with this whiteboard option. I hit share, and now, pardon my typing, I can do a number of different things with this whiteboard feature that is built in to the Zoom platform. Okay. I know we've gotten a lot of questions about showing work for math, which is why I did the 4+4. Oh, thank you, Cara. She's always so supportive. But this is a nice added benefit to using this Zoom platform, is that there is a whiteboard feature built right in. There's a lot of other options like Jamboard and things that you can use third party, but sometimes keeping it simple is the best way to go, and this feature is built right in. So I'm going to clear that. I'm going to close my little tool option. I'm going to hit stop sharing. And what I'm going to do is one more time, go back to that share screen to show you. Here's your whiteboard option. I know I might have done it a little quick. Okay. I can also go, here's my Google Chrome browser. If I wanted to show a web page, or maybe I wanted to show something that I have a slide presentation put together, I can pull that up. In addition to that, there are settings that you can enable beforehand, which again, in that guide, take a look at it, will allow students the ability to share their screens as well. So if you want them to show work, they can do that just the same as you would. Okay. Next down here is our little breakout room button. Okay. You can choose to create breakout rooms to have small groups and then pop back in and forth through all those rooms. That's a little advanced, so I'm not going to go too much into it. If you want to know more about the breakout rooms, feel free to send us an email, send us a hangout. If you're filling out the exit form, post that as your question at the end. We'll get back to you on that. All right. So I'm going to pull up this manage participants thing one more time, because there's a couple things I wanted to show you in addition to the mute all, unmute all options and removing that we already discussed. And it goes back to ensuring that your meetings are locked down and secure. Okay. So we already talked about having passwords and being careful where we're sharing this information. However, there's still plenty of ways that strangers, more or less, can join your meet sessions. Down here under the participants list is a more button. And in here, I have some settings that I can customize. Again, mute all participants upon entry. Some of these things we already went over. Play a chime when people come in. If you think back to the good old AOL days when the door opens and closes when your friends came on the instant messenger and you were like, oh, who's coming in? That's what that is. So a little nostalgia. But the main thing I wanted to show you here is this option to lock the meeting. I click on lock meeting, and what it tells me is Zoom says that no new attendees can join this meeting once it is locked. Let me elaborate. No one can join this meeting once it's locked, even if they have the password. Okay? So if you are certain that all of your students are in this session, you go ahead, you get your head count, you do your attendance, whatever it may be. You come down here to manage participants, you hit more, you hit lock, yes. It now changes to unlock if we wanted to, but now we are certain and we have peace of mind that there's no one that can get into this meeting any longer until I hit unlock there. Okay. Now, all of these tools, all of these features that I'm showing you, your students have access to a lot of these as well. They may look a little different. Instead of manage participants, it shows them participants. They'll see the list of all the other classmates and they can do these little nonverbal gestures. They won't have these options like mute, unmute all, or more because they're not the manager of this meet session, okay? Depending on whether or not you gave them the capability to share the screen, they might have that option, all right? There's a number of these tools that I'm showing you, again, that they'll all have access to as well. One of the guides that I put together for you is a little directions cheat sheet for students using Zoom that will go over all of these little icons down here, tools they can use, and how they can join your meet sessions. So be sure to check that out and share that with them if you see fit. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. One last thing to show you up here before I go about closing the meeting. You can make it full screen. Not really too much difference if you have it taking up the most of your screen already, but it uses the entirety of your screen. Okay, I'm going to exit full screen again. Down here at the bottom, we have the option to end the meeting. For participants, it says leave meeting. They'll click on it and they can leave that meeting. When I click on it, and Cara, I'm going to be ending this meeting now. It was great meeting with you. I'll check back with you at the end when we have that announcement. Here, I still have you muted. Let me unmute you. Unmute.
Bye.
There we
Thanks.
go.
I learned so much about Zoom today.
Stick around because Cara and I are don't go anywhere because I'm gonna pull you back in. We have that special announcement to talk to you guys about a new resource that you guys can use during spring break and for the rest of remote learning. And even when we get back in the building, we're excited about it. So Cara, hold tight. I'm gonna end this meeting. I'll bring you back into this YouTube live session. But as of right now, I'm gonna click end meeting and you'll notice I can leave the meeting myself or nice feature, end the meeting for all. So Cara, I will see you in a little bit. End meeting for all. And we are out. Okay. So I'm going to close this window and pop back in to our slideshow. This slide just has a couple tips and tricks for being successful with video broadcasting. Be mindful of your surroundings. Don't have dirty laundry in the background. Don't have a light behind you. Make sure your face is illuminated. The directions, making sure the students know how to get into these Zoom meetings, whatever conference apps you're using, it's new to them. Make sure they know how to use them, as well as once they're in them, setting clear expectations of what that meeting is going to look like. Are they going to be muted? How are they expected to participate? Using the chat, nonverbal cues are okay. However you decide to do that, make sure that those expectations are just as clear as the expectations you'd have typically in your classroom. Use the chat option. Again, I can't stress this enough. Record, archive, and share. Make sure you're recording all these videos. Once they're recorded, you can save them all to Drive, then post them through Classroom, post them on YouTube for all of your students to access at any point in time. And lastly, have fun. Let your personality shine. Wear different silly hats. Wear outfits to get your kids engaged and excited about the situation we're in, okay? And then lastly, prepare for unexpected. Bandwidth, as we all know, can be an issue sometimes. So just have something on the backup plan. Here is that, let me go big again. Here are all the resources. Some of them I mentioned. There's the Zoom Help Center, the guide for teachers using Zoom through the Clever portal. If you have questions about doing that, again, email us, Hangout. Throw us a question in the back of that exit ticket, which is, again, posted right here. Again, we use that bit.ly short URL. It's ELLLEXIT, EdTech Lunch and Learn Live exit. All case sensitive. They all have to be capitalized. So you can go ahead, fill that out, and get credit for today's session. Here again are all the resources that you can access. The guide for the settings that I'd mentioned walks you through every setting that you want to have turned on and off and why, as well as directions for students. There's some other great graphics, some privacy issues, ways to be more secure, a lot of resources here for you to use. There is our contact information. Email us, send us direct Hangouts. These links again are all in the slideshow. If you've gotten it, the URL is up here at the top. You'll have access to all these resources and more. I had mentioned we have one more announcement to share. Let's get to it. I'm going to bring Cara back. Cara, you there?
Hey.
Excellent. So as I mentioned, we had this announcement to share, and I'm going to let kind of Cara take it away about this new resource available to all the teachers at HTSD.
So Joe and I and Chris and the tech facilitator team, we're really excited to introduce you guys to the HTSD Educators Google group. So basically what it is a discussion board where you can post your ideas or ask for help or ask for questions, not just from the tech facilitators or from your supervisors, but from your colleagues and your peers too. And the beautiful thing that we think about the discussion board is you can collaborate not only between people in your grade level, like some of the Google Classrooms that are set up, but also between other departments and other grade levels. So if you want to get fancy, you can call it vertical articulation and horizontal articulation at the same time. So we think it's a great opportunity for teachers to collaborate, share your resources. Don't be shy asking for help or looking for an idea of something you can do with remote learning. So if you're getting tired of doing the same things all the time, feel free to share whatever you have and ask for help from your colleagues. And Joe and Chris and I will be the moderators in the group, so we'll be able to answer questions too if they come up. Joe's got an entire video for you that we can release that will show you around how to post and how to reply to everybody. And we also have a Google slideshow that is with screenshots. So if you prefer a more slow introduction to the new place, feel free. As always, the Google group is optional. You do not have to participate if you don't want to. So if you're already feeling overwhelmed with the amount of resources that are out there, you know, this is just an extra way to add to collaboration and communication throughout the district. So don't feel overwhelmed if you're not ready for it. Otherwise, we're super excited to see it. Joe, anything to add to?
Yeah, this was out of creation from what we were hearing from teachers like you, a place to talk with one another whenever you had the time. So you can jump in, post something, go through the browse the discussions. This is something that came out of remote learning to stay connected, but is going to be something that will continue even when we get back into the building. So one of the options on there is classroom supplies. That's something that everybody's always giving away or looking for. You can use that as a place to kind of, hey, I've got this, or hey, I'm looking for this. This discussion board is truly meant for HTSD educators to be based around whatever it is you guys are looking for, whether it's questions and answers, sharing resources. This is all about you guys coming together as one. All right. As Karen mentioned, we'll have resources for you to learn about Google Group. Looks like she's got one more thing to say. We will send out an official email inviting everybody to the group, as well as going a little more in depth about how to use that group. Karen?
Just a little extra thing. Joe's enthusiasm. I don't want to bring the enthusiasm down to the group, but I feel like it needs to be said too. Just be aware that everything is for everybody in the district to see, all teachers, all staff, all administrators. So please be very cognizant of what you are posting in the discussion board. It is for professional conversations only.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind. It is a little bit social media-esque, but we really, really, really need to keep it as instructionally relevant and as professional as possible. Just putting that out there, just as your disclaimer star at the bottom, as your agreement procedure. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you're participating, not to include any personal information about your students or other staff members that you might be working with, or, anything like that. So just keep it professional and it'll be great.
Awesome. Well, that's all for us. Thank you for joining us for our Zoom PD today. And we really look forward to seeing what all of you are able to get out of collaborating and communicating in this Google group as we strive to be one Hamilton. So that's it for us. Have a great weekend. Have a great spring break. And we will be back with more of these episodes not too far from now. 2 weeks, I think? So
what day is it? I don't even know.
We are just as overwhelmed as you. So take care. Have a great spring break.
Have a great break, everybody. See ya.